Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to ASU for the second day of the 10th anniversary Genocide Awareness Week. And it is my pleasure today to introduce someone with whom I've worked for many years on and off, Dr. Esad Boškailo. He's a psychiatry specialist in Phoenix, Arizona, and has over 37 years of experience in the medical field. He's a clinical associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Arizona College of Medicine, which is the one that's located in Phoenix. And associate director of psychiatric residency training at the Maricopa Integrated Health System. He's trained in family medicine, was trained in Bosnia, and he works with survivors of trauma from domestic abuse to war. He wrote, "Wounded, I am more awake." I urge you to buy that. You can find it online, which follows him as a doctor who survives not one, but 6 concentration camps in Bosnia and emerges with powerful new lessons for healing in an age of genocide. This gripping account raises questions for healers, survivors, and readers, striving to understand the reality of war and the aftermath of terror. And I can honestly say that Esad is one of the best speakers that we've had in a couple of previous Genocide Awareness Weeks. And so I'm very, very honored to have him back, and you're very privileged to get to hear him speak. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Boškailo.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I hope you hear me, right? Okay. So thanks, everybody, for coming. So when I talk about genocide, I usually talk about trauma, PTSD. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a survivor. I talk about a little about social study, what the social implication of this event. So there are many of me here, but I want to tell you immediately something about trauma, because that's my topic, is how genocide denial affect people who survive trauma. So what trauma does to people, it's very unique. Trauma is able to freeze person in the past, in that time of the trauma, because that time person is powerless. That moment when you are frozen, you are not able to see even who were you before, and definitely not able to see who you can be. So what genocide denial and the trauma wants you to be frozen there and not to move on. It's a similar concept with any stress in life. What is the stress in life doing to people? Stress and trauma are narrowing our views, we don't see much in the future. So the goal, what we do in psychiatry and in society, is to open up some door, open up some view, to have a normal life again and to see what you can be again. So trauma is definitely part of these people who survive genocide or Holocaust or any other domestic violence. But our goal is to let them know there is a process. It's not the easy one, that you can move on. We have a saying in Bosnia, when one door's closed, hundreds other are opening. So as one famous psychiatrist, Judith Ferman, professor at Harvard, she says something that people who survive story like trauma or war or genocide, telling the story is fragmented and sometimes emotional, but also not well organized. So that disorganization, don't blame me, blame her. She described it as a normal, it's almost like normal process that I cannot tell you a story from the beginning to the end. because things come up in my mind. So I'll try to present a little bit about Bosnia, a little bit about genocide, denial, PTSD, trauma, what's happening now. So all together, we are here to learn, and hopefully that we'll get the message how to, as I said earlier on previous presentation when I make a comment, how to learn from this and how not to be one of those war criminals. And we can do it. We can, if we are prepared and for horrible situation, we can do better things than they did. We can do it. So now I'll try to, it's a long war in Bosnia, was for 4 years. So I'm going to try to put it short and shorter. Okay, so that's my book. Okay. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist, as a psychiatrist has survived Auschwitz. He said, you can read it, he said something, it's not easy to talk about it. For people who are not there, I doubt, and I'm not asking you to imagine how was it. But to talk to people who are that time together, what's the point? They already know. So that was his story, but it is important to talk. I put him as somebody that I read a lot about, and I agree with a lot what he said. I'll start story, not from war, but I start this one. So this is the place I had coffee in November of last year. And I find this place on purpose in Paris because Ernest Hemingway is one of my favorite writers. And I wanna have a coffee there. And there is a story that he said that he who knows, who read Hemingway know he was writing in short sentences. He was betting that he can make significant story by 6 words. And they said, no way. And he said, yeah, for sale, baby shoes, never worn. So many people would think differently, obviously. People, but how do we have our thinking? How do we form our thinking? You know, a lot of things that influence our thinking. One of them is our experience. So, war story like this. So, for most of you, probably, I see some Bosnian friends, no location about Bosnia and what happened in 1992. I'm talking about war 1992 to 1995. This is a map of Europe, and then I guess you can see Bosnia somewhere there next to Italy here. So it's a Europe is, I always say, a strange place. It's a lot of nationalism, fascism. It's nice, it's beautiful, but there is something in Europe that is always bothering me, how people behave through the history to each other. You know, many wars, many atrocities. But we had fairly good life for 50 years, I guess, in former Yugoslavia. 6 independent states, this is really important statement, 6 independent states formed Federation Yugoslavia. From the west is Slovenia, then Croatia, then Bosnia, then Serbia, then Montenegro and Macedonia. They made this country in 1918 and then re-established in 1945 after World War II. Federation of Yugoslavia, good country, fairly good. They said to Russia, they said, no, we don't want to belong to you like other countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and other countries. They said, no, they took side of the West, actually US. And then we have communism, but very mild, very similar to democracy. Your life was good, fairly good. And but in 1990, what happened is Berlin Wall, you know that, and then dissolution of Soviet Union, nationalism in former Yugoslavia, actually directly in Serbia, was rising. And they just, for my Bosnian friend, I usually say we are just like unlucky because we are positioned between those 2 countries, Croatia and Serbia. They wanted to divide Bosnia in half. And that was the basically reason for the war. Some geopolitical things that I will never understand. But this was a desire. They want to divide it, and they did try. So independence of Bosnia, 1992, from former Yugoslavia, Slovenia did before us, Croatia did. It's happening all in a few months, and Bosnia did, and then on March 1st, and then soon we are recognized by European Union, recognized by US, recognized by the United Nations, and today, April 5th, unbelievable. It's just 30 years ago, the war started. Serbian and Russian same almost. They just start attacking us. Just for you, like little politics. I'm not a politician, and I hate to say this, but the only country in Europe now supporting Russia is Serbia. So openly. So that's, they have some connection that I will never understand. So. So we have war. How the war started? How the war started? The slides you can read, but how war started? It started suddenly. Everybody was unprepared. We couldn't believe that our former neighbors will do it. Basically, I frequently said my story. It's a book also that I was. There was some political turmoil, but nothing major in my mind, at least. I was one of those naive guys that I was driving to work, and then like 6 young people, I saw they're young, they have covered head, big guns on the road between my little town to town that I was working as a physician in emergency room and family medicine, both. I did both. They stopped me and they said, I cannot go to work. And doctors are sometimes like crazy about work, We said, no, I'll go. You cannot stop me. They said, yeah, we can. And I said, no. And there was a point that they really couldn't make me. I was stubborn. And one guy uncovered his face. I recognized him. I don't remember his name. At that time, I didn't know his name. I recognized him from the street. He said, we have order, will kill you if you don't go back. I have to go back, and that day war started. And I'm not going to tell you the details. It's very not easy to listen. So some numbers, 2.5 million people are forced to leave. Every other person from the state of Bosnia became a refugee. Think about it. We are a nation around like 4 million people. Now we have now less population. I think I have a slide. 500,000 less population than we had in 1991. And the reason is because people are killed and forced to leave and stuff like that. So half of that people, like over 100,000, were civilians. And destruction was like, you can imagine the same as you'd see right now on TV in Ukraine war. They just have artillery, tanks, and every airplane and everything. We didn't have anything, but we are able to defend slowly. So this is like census. This destruction, all historical destruction, important buildings, schools, hospitals are destroyed, infrastructure is destroyed, everything was destroyed. United Nations, they said later, with the presenter before me, said, yeah, what do we do now with Ukraine? Yeah, we stay, we are with you. Well, that's not enough, And that's what happened to us. Yeah, later UN said, okay, sorry guys, something like that. That's how. And then after war in Bosnia was over, administration Bill Clinton established international court tribunal for former Yugoslavia in Hague, Netherlands, and they qualify war in Bosnia as genocide, and then killing men, young people like 16 to 60-year-old, and then forcing a civilian to leave. That happened in the city of Srebrenica. That's the city was a small city where other people came from neighborhood cities or villages. Why did they come to Srebrenica? Because United Nations had a made a statements, how they call a resolution, so resolution. They made that city of Srebrenica, no army, either Bosnian or Serbian, can enter into that city. And they are under protection of United Nations Army as long as they need to. Nobody can enter in that city. So people, refugees from neighborhood villages came there, but July 11, 1995, a Serbian army came in and killed 8,000. So that was about Srebrenica. The UN was like Dutch battalion. They just left. And then they start killing. And then Sarajevo, capital of Bosnia. What you see here, 1 year, like maybe 5-6 years ago, they organized it. I think they are trying to organize every year. They have red chairs, 11,000 something empty chairs. That's how many people in the city of Sarajevo are killed. And Sarajevo siege was for almost 4 years, and 2 guys, major army guys, they got sentenced in international court. And I have those names. They are like Stanislav Galic and Dragomir Milosevic. They are sentenced for life and 20 years. Those responsible for Sarajevo. Then I said later they call genocide, they call urbicide. They destroyed that famous national library and was burned to the ground. But now is now we have the new building, very similar. And then over we have that Bosnia, a small country. It's not like it was not digitalized. It was I think they just started to digitalize some historic books, but 2 million books are destroyed. And just to remind you, I know you know, but Europe has the longest history than US. Like we have history from 5th century. Our kingdom started in the 11th, 12th century. So there is a longest history. So we have those books in different languages about Bosnia, and they're destroyed because nobody else had them. So some picture, better than I tell you. Bosnian national TV station, sure, there was bombed immediately, not to have a news. And recently they rebuilt this, and just like last week, believe it or not, they have some struggle financially. And then one of the member of Serbian politics from Belgrade, he said, if there are financial difficulties, I have a plan. I'll come and put some explosive and destroy it anyway. 30 years later. Yeah, and he is not like somebody, he's just politician, somebody official from Serbia. Some picture, famous marketplace where civilians are buying some vegetables occasionally. You see the 68 people die, many wounded. This was daily picture in the city of Sarajevo. And then some about how we feel about UN and genocide. Srebrenica I already talked to. I don't want to, you know, it's just like too much for you guys. 21 mass graves something like 10 years ago. There are more recently. I just didn't have time to update this, but many, and they're so like interesting. They have primary and secondary mass graves. How they have when there is some indication they're going to find mass graves with 1,000 bodies, they at night they do remove that to remote area. But there is always people who cannot be quiet. They have to share. And that's how most of mass graves are covered with grass and trees and everything. But there are people, Serbian people, they are telling us there is a mass grave there. They cannot sleep. They have to say it because the truth has to come out always. This one is already, we are getting into some genocide denials. On the end of the war, city of Tuzla, again, for you who know, it's a city in northeast Bosnia. For probably geographic reason, who knows? There was not much war in that city. There was no fighting in that, specifically in that city. But they knew there is a holiday for young people. They are near the college, and they put grenade and they killed many young students and children from age of two to like but current president of Serbian politics who is major problem right now in Bosnia, Milorad Dodik, he said that that not happened. You know, imagine you have how many families, 71 families that lost child, right? And you know you lost your child, and you know you lost in Tuzla, and you buried them. You buried them. But he said, no, never happened. That was staged. They just get dead body from somewhere else. Imagine that, morbidity. And he's still in power. And that's the great. So a little city, another portion of our war, unfortunately, is Serbia and Croatia. At some time in 1983, decided to divide Bosnia, and so Croatia did some bad things to us. One of this is like beautiful city near, maybe 30 kilometers from my town. It's old British, like over 500 years. And there was no war activity on it. They start shelling it days by days. And there's 6 people got charged for this. And they got, I don't think, can you read? 25 years, 20 years? 20 years, this guy with beard, he is movie director, Slobodan Pradak. 16, 10, and that was Army General 20. I met him in the war. He got 20, but this movie director, I don't know his reason, he did it in the court. He probably couldn't live with himself, or I don't know his reason. I have no much opinion, but he did. We don't know how he got cyanide, and when they told him 20 years or whatever, he got cyanide. That died instantly. And he was a movie director. I met him in the war. Some concentration camp, Serbian. That was one of the first camp discovered by, I think, one of the U.S. journalists actually, and that was this picture. I just want to tell you guys, this is not like after 3 years later. This is like a month later or 2 months later. This is not like 6 months later or 7 months later. This is like 2 months later. There's no food at all, at all. There is no water for days. What you see a picture here, it's people who survived. Not everybody survived because there was no food and water. This was probably, I'm thinking like June, May, June, 3 months, 2-3 months. This picture was taken, most likely. We can find out easily. Yeah. It's really interesting when you see this picture and then you think, okay, some people in Northern Bosnia would. I can say, you know what, I don't, the Northern Bosnia, I don't know anybody. And I was presenting one time in Dallas, Texas, 10 years ago. And one guy in the audience, he said, that's him here, I think, in the middle. Again, believe me, a month or two later. Yeah, 3 maybe. That's no food. And I'll show you some picture. I don't think I'll talk much about. I'll show you my picture of my concentration camp. I don't even know how much time, John, how much time do I have actually? Oh. Okay. Okay, so this is one of my camp. It's called Rettel. I'll show you some picture. Maybe I'll tell you a story or something. This picture. I know this Rettel started for most people in July 1st, 1993. This picture was taken on end of August 1993. So July and August, 2 months. I know that because I was here and I know these people. 2 months. This was 2 months. A little bit about war criminals. On the left, guy on the left for me, on the left, General Mladic, he was the main general for Serbian army. He got a life in prison. And then Radovan Karadzic, psychiatrist, unfortunately, he got 40 years, and he was main political figures who organized everything. So that's interesting. Also, it's a picture. Everybody know this guy. He is still free. He is DJ in Belgrade. This woman was I don't know who made this picture. I used to know. I think Javi or something. His name is a journalist from US, and he witnessed this woman was dead already. So he's still free. 30 years later. So a little bit about trauma. I know this is not like psychiatric lecture. I have some residents here, but just like basic, I put this from the major book on trauma, and I put some like summary that pretty much capture the essence of the psychological trauma, from sexual abuse, from Holocaust, from genocide, from any trauma. This is what's happening. The ordinary response is we want to put in unconscious. We don't want that. How come? It's painful. We want to put it back. That's happened. Okay. So some of those trauma and torture are so difficult that's why we say they are unspeakable, because like in me as a doctor now, I'm a doctor now. I'm not concentration camp survivor any longer. I finished that. I'm doctor now. I have to protect you. That's why I'm not going to tell you my story, full story, because it's painful. It's not easy to listen. But this is what she said. That's why it's unspeakable. Atrocity, however, refused to be buried. That's very important. And then there is a powerful desire to deny what happened. But also there is a powerful desire to tell the story. Why do we tell the story? There was a discussion on previous meeting. Why do we tell story? We try to tell the story, to learn, to educate ourselves, to do something, to try to do restoration of the society, as well as a restoration of the individuals. That was the point of telling the story. There is always conflict to deny and then to tell them that will happen. They are so important. They are so important. If they are not told, they become secrecy. Very often, the secrecy prevails. And then those people develop symptoms, unfortunately. So either you said, not necessarily by words, but thinking, by writing, by art, you have to say the story to somebody. So you have to say it, not by words. Or if you keep a secret, it's going to kill you. It's going to hurt you. That's what she said. And then study trauma is helping us to face our vulnerability, our human, unfortunately, nature to be aggressive, and then to study and to face evil in the people. So what do they do with the genocide in Bosnia? They want to silence you. I tell you many stories that you wouldn't believe. 20 years ago, I'm presenting here. I'm presenting somewhere in US, I don't know. And then there's big audience, and then somebody from Serbia, a young student, she struggles. Why does she struggle? She didn't do anything. How come she struggles? Because she has identity. And nationalism teach you to take away your character identity, to accept the nationalistic identity, and she feels guilty for whole nation. And she said, why do you still talk about it? I said, still, this happened 3 years ago. That was just when I came. So, but then you shouldn't talk. I said, okay, so we are dealing with something. You are telling me I would be like ashamed or I shouldn't talk about what happened. And you are telling me not to talk because you feel shame because you are a Serbian. How is that working? I'm going to talk until I die. Anywhere I can, and I do, yearly, probably 10 times, anywhere. I will talk about it. Not just to tell my story to get something from it, I don't get, but to tell people this was happening and this is the truth that happened. And nobody can tell me, like if I talk to you about a total concentration camp, what is difference between that individualistic trauma or somebody like me? What is different, major difference? Well, you are there and nobody saw it, it's for some people, for legal people, it's questionable. For me as a clinician, it's never questionable. But guess what? I have a couple thousand witnesses. They saw what they did to me. A couple thousand by name. I have them. It's not me alone. So that's a difference. That's why I have credibility to talk. PTSD, a little bit for you, just like what is PTSD? It happened, this illness, pretty much anxiety, depression, and not sleeping well, thinking about it after trauma. I'm not going to go into details into PTSD because I want to talk about genocide denial. And then negative emotion. The patient with PTSD don't see the future. They see everything negative. They cannot concentrate, and they have flashbacks. They re-experience, and then. Okay, so in Bosnia right now, what's happening? Serbian army, Serbian officials, what they do? They denied genocide. And then what do? They also try to, okay, if some of them say, yeah, it happened, there are 8,000 and something, 400 graves in Srebrenica, there are dead people, but then they say, okay, they try to justify or rationalize. There is no justification for killing. So they are trying to say, okay, this was like something, it was a battle and we killed them for some previous historical. There was one of the General Ratko Mladic. He said this is to pay back from some battle in Kosovo that happened 1389. Yeah, he's an idiot. But that's why he is in how far they go with the denial. All right, there was a movie, Quo Vadis Aida. If you didn't see it, please see it. That was a movie about Srebrenica. Serbian actor was playing General Ratko Mladic, good actor. And he couldn't leave the house in Belgrade. He was scared to life. He said he cannot leave. But you know what saved him? The truth. The truth saved him. How come? There was a journalist in Belgrade, got him on TV in an interview and asked him a question. And he said, allowed him to explain himself. As he said, okay, why don't you see YouTube video? What General Mladic, they filmed him that time in Srebrenica. What he said, did I made any change in his statement? No. This actor, he was telling word by word what General Mladic used in 1995 in Srebrenica. And that after that, he was a little bit free to walk. He used word by word to the point he said his wife was telling him, please, I'm going to kill you one more time. Every evening he was practicing what General Mladic was saying. He said, I already feel fear from you. I'm not sure I'm not going to kill you. So go into another room. He was practicing word by word what he said. But I say, so they are talking about revenge. Revenge doesn't justify killing 8,000 people, you know. And then Radovan Karadzic, psychiatrist, he got in international court, he got 40 years of prison, and they 20, I don't know, 15, 20 accounts for genocide. And then this is his wife and his daughter, and the Milorad Dodik, the fascist who is running now Serbian party in Bosnia. They opened the dorm like here in like on Lemon Street or something, and they named Radovan Karadzic. Was that teaching to young people? They opened the dorm, but the international community, after many years, I think after 4 or 5 years, they are able to force them to remove that a couple months ago. International European community, there was one person who was able to. Then young people like soccer players, they have a picture of General Mladic. He is life in prison, and he has a picture of him. And he was responsible for killing over 8,000 people. And young soccer player, I mean, I doubt they choose that. If one of them choose, I think they did, but I think that was ordered by government or something. Okay. Genocide Awareness. So there was a woman for Srebrenica. She was fighting for the truth. She was testifying in Hague International Court, and then for she lost husband and 2 sons, and she died recently, 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And then vice president, not somebody in Serbia, but vice president of Serbian parliament, she said it, and she did that. That's not that I said, she said. No, it's on Twitter. That's how I find it. It's not like somebody made it up. She said, now she died. I'm wondering if her husband and 2 sons can bury her. Vice president of, you are lucky your neighbor is Canada, you know. So we are just unlucky to have Serbian as a neighbors. For now, I'm sorry, for now. The Vladimir Đukanović in 2019, member of Serbian parliament, also he wants to congratulate General Mladic to free Srebrenica, killing 8,000 young people. And even though, and then that Serbian prime minister, she called it misunderstanding in Srebrenica. It's a misunderstanding. The another one, Rajko Vasić, prominent Serbian politician. He said, if they want to talk, that's like me or other people who are talking about it. If they want to talk about genocide, we can make another one. He said it. And he is the same one who, when Notre Dame had a fire, Notre Dame, one of the major church in the world, like that, the big one. Me and my wife were there like a couple of months ago, and it's recovering very nicely, rebuilding Notre Dame church. And he said that he was happy because he blamed West, and he said that was paying back for because NATO bombed Serbia in 2000 or 1999. That's another idiot. Colleague David Petri, I work with him right now. He is professor in genocide study at Yale. He's currently right now he's in Bosnia. He found me. We are working on something different than genocide denial. We are working to go to those old camps, because I was in 6 camp, concentration camp, to go there and put some kind of like monument, like plaque at least. That was a camp. And then I don't know how far we can go, but we are going to try. Otherwise, is genocide denial. So what do they do with genocide denials? It's something I'll try to simplify probably. What anybody who does genocide denial, they never said, they rarely said this has not happened. They try to turn onto your credibility. Why do you say this story? They are trying to do something else. And then not only they didn't do genocide, they're glorifying them. How do they glorify them? Every city in Bosnia under Serb territory now, they have monument, street name, school name, dorm name by this people who are dying in the prison by international court. And we want to do something opposite. We want to put this happen. Because they do change the history. They do. I talk to younger people from my region. They told me, and then they told me that the rental concentration camp that I saw with my eyes, people being killed. They said nobody, the young people who is now 26-year-old was not born even. They told me nobody died in Britain. That's not bad condition, not bad. If I'm a bad person, I say, I wish you are there for a day, not for a year, because there was no food. There was a killing and torturing people every day. And they are learning now from their own people. Nothing happened there, nothing. That's how genocide in Alix. So we want to fight that. And if we don't, we are risking this. They're gonna, the people like Elvis said, they are being killed again if we don't build some memorial for them. Instead of genocide in Alix, that's why I'm here. Basically, it's mostly my idea to talk about is what do we do? First of all, justice is slow. Like Mladic got a confirmation last year that life in prison. Karadzic also. So 30 years later, that's okay. Justice is slow, but it's happening. Slobodan Milosevic, who orchestrated everything, president of Serbia at that time, he died in prison in cell in Hague. Radovan Karadzic for the Ratko life. Many Serbian they got, I think, over or close to 800 years in prison, and they are still denying, like international community hates them or something. Instead of genocide denial, what do? We recently have a high representative, that's a person from Germany or Austria now from Germany, who is responsible to making sure that Dayton peace agreement in Bosnia is working. He made a law in Bosnia, it's a criminal law, to deny genocide. Oh, we see results already. We already see results. That's what we needed. That was a big step. We already see some less denial. But that is only for territory of Bosnia. It doesn't apply to Serbia. What happened is if hope is that Serbian government will accept, will admit what they did, and that will relieve the burden from Serbian people who are identifying with Serbian nationalism, and they will say, I didn't do anything, I can be a free man. That was like, at least so we can go to reconciliation and life again. So I know I talk fast. I mentioned a few things. I show you a picture. I think you got the basic concept of what genocide is and how people suffer and how people had to leave the country and how it's difficult to come back, but everything is possible. And then there is always hope. And that's what, if you ever meet somebody, that's what you have to tell people. There is always hope. We can do better, and we can be better human beings than them. Okay. I think that's about it. If you have a question, I can tell you more details or
Bosnian schools today, high schools. Oh, in Bosnian schools today in high school, do they teach this recent history? Sort of as you just now presented it.
In part of Bosnia. Because unfortunately, Dayton peace agreement is still like, there is a region in Bosnia, they teach completely different story, different. They are trying to deny this.
Okay.
They are trying, and that's very painful. That's very painful for people, because what average person in Bosnia now worries, you know, if they are able to deny this, that it's a video, it is a picture, it's photography, we worry it's going to happen again. And how far they go. The picture from Marketplace, there's a person, you know, that's a horrible picture. I cannot show you again. That was the most horrible picture I have. 5 days ago, I found a Serbian portal, a newspaper. They showed the picture. I was saying, oh my God, this is something. This is new for Serbian people. But they said, this is what NATO did in 1999 to Serbian people, NATO bombing. And I said, okay, that's just like, well, where is the end? Where is the end? And that place was like, imagine you don't have a food in Sarajevo. People main energy was books, you know. For luckily we have communist book. They are always massive, you know, with good cover, and you can get good food on one book because they are very massive communistic book that saved us. The books that we have to cook on those books. There was no fuel, and you know, and then you think, okay, now people go to buy the food on market, and they purposely, they knew it, and they put big bomb and killed like 70 people, 100 and something killed. And now they show the picture and they said, this is what NATO bombing did recently in Belgrade bombing.
Just one other quick question. Do you see a parallel in how Russia seems to be denying its atrocities and Ukraine using the same?
I can tell you, you didn't see this, nobody, and I don't think none of you, other than few my Bosnian friends, I'll tell you word by word. I saw interview by Russian ambassador in Bosnia, and it scared me. He said, the journalist, who's good journalist, female journalist, asked him, so what's Russia has a plan? Do they have plan in West Balkan like we are? He said, no, unless you accept NATO membership. And she said, then what's happened then next? He said, you're gonna pay high price if you become NATO membership. And she said, you are threatening us on our national TV. That's not like, what are you doing? He said, oh no, I'm not threatening you. I'm not threatening. It's only if you become NATO membership, you're gonna pay high price. And he said, but what do you do with, what's your goal in war in Ukraine? He said, there is no war in Ukraine. I'm telling you, my wife was here, we watched together. She said, there is no war in Ukraine. Everybody said, no, there's no war in Ukraine. Ukraine never declared war to Russia, never. If they didn't declare war, there's no war. Once Ukraine declare war to us, then we can call the war. There is no war. That's how they thought. We watched that 7 days ago.
Okay. Yeah, I have a question. It's arguable that the Dayton Agreement left Bosnia Herzegovina in a real mess, especially long term or so. And now we have in the Republic of Srpska, forgive my pronunciation, Milorad Dodik, yes. How possible is it that they're going to split away and there's going to be another civil war?
Yeah, it's very likely, very possible. And I have some people I know, they agree with my evaluation, because this Russian ambassador, he said directly. So Russia is trying, obviously, to take those two regions, right, to annex them, to take them to become part of Russia, right? That everybody knows, those very important regions. So I think he promised Milorad Dodik, when he finished this job in Ukraine, he's going to help him to take part of Bosnia with the Republic of Srpska out of to Serbia. It was promised, and that's why he's doing it. Otherwise, nobody knows why this guy is so powerful. He has some backup, and that's Putin. There is no other explanation for us. We have no idea.
So Srpska then would Serbia.
Yeah,
right.
That's the plan. So it's very like my main topic was, and I didn't talk much about main topic, was like genocide denial. You know, imagine how's that painful, you know, to people who survive something like that. It's like unimaginable, like what the professor before me presented on Holocaust. He said the same story. It's universal, you know.
I was curious, as a psychiatrist, is the therapy for the PTSD of survivors of genocide or concentration or torture similar to what works for veterans of wars?
Yes.
Same,
yes.
Same
yes.
works, the
yes.
same therapy?
Same therapy.
Which therapies seem to have the best?
You asked me very specific. Most people tell you that like some it's called CPT, a part of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but this is CPT, cognitive processing therapy. And I'm doing a little bit different, what I learned. for many years. I do like testimony therapy. I allow, yeah, narrative, I'm not insisting. When person is tortured, that time they don't have a control. When now they should have control, I give them control and I tell them, just share as much as you are comfortable today. And you don't have to say anything, as much as you can. So that give them control. It's because it's not easy to always, or like, because when I present, I always think, believe me, that my brain is, I have to say, unusual. I always think, should I say this? Should I tell you this? Because I'm not sure how is that going to be for me and for you. And then I have control. Should I tell you like I was in the room like this with 700 people laying at the floor, no place for legs whatsoever, no food for 7 days, shootings through the wall, rafales, and people got hit. It was sudden, unprovoked, unannounced, and first time was scary. Second time is not that scary, but you are scared between. You don't know when.
So I've always heard a lot about this war growing up because both of my parents are from Bosnia and they've relocated because of the war. And something that I've always been shocked about growing up is how the war in Bosnia is just completely absent from American education, where it's just never mentioned. And I'm always the one who has to bring it up with my friends, and they can't even point out Bosnia on a map. And that's how a complete mystery this war is to most Americans. And you mentioned how often the perpetrators of trauma attempt to silence the victim. Would you say that this complete unawareness of the Bosnian war is attributed to our silence of the genocide, or do you have some other theory as to why Americans are so unaware about this conflict?
Because we are first, there are probably many reasons. I have to think for a second, but the first thinking in my mind was that we still have family there. I got messages because I present a couple months ago at ASU on Bosnian genocide. I presented on many universities all over US about Bosnian genocide. I think I presented in more than 30 states in the United States about Bosnian genocide. But here, my wife, she told me, hey, slow down. We have family there. We have to go back there. Why are you exposing yourself? Okay, I got a message from my relatives there who are working there. They have children in the college. They have, children who are doctors, physicians, other lawyers, whatever. And they told me, they said, you don't have to always talk about it. Make a little break. But I struggle with that because their safety is a question, and that's how they silence you. They're threatening us. There is a phenomena in Bosnia. There is like unbelievable journalists that you wouldn't believe that exist. I don't think he identifies himself as a Serbian, but his both parents are Serbian. He's from Banja Luka. His name is Dragan Bursac. He had many international awards as a good journalist. He writes about Serbian genocide daily on social media, Twitter, Facebook, news, magazine, daily, with the name of the person, with the kid who was 2-year-old killed. He showed the picture. He is unbelievable. I met him. I talked to him, and we met him a couple of years ago, and I talked to him 10 days ago. He gets death threats daily from people with a name. We will kill you. And they write him on social media, newspaper, they write him against his writing. None of them, I read like at least 100 of those threats and reason why. None of them mention anything like this. What you said in your report is not the truth. Nobody ever said it. They just like, you are, I have to see a piece of shit, why you are doing this, and nothing. None of them said, well, you said this story about kid who was 2-year-old taken from the mom and killed. And his name is this, and that happened in this and town. That's not true. Somebody lied to you. Nobody ever said it. And I wrote an article about that, about him as a part of denial. And that's why also a lot of people are afraid still, because we have family there. Yeah. Say again?
There are Serbs here who are also.
Yeah, I don't think about them here. No, I don't. I'm not, like personally, it's my second life. I don't have the fear, but people in my family, they warned me. Isha told me, please don't. She said, slow down.
Yeah, Dr. Boškailo, thank you so much. We work and do research in very similar areas, and so I have 100 questions. So I'll have to follow up by email, or we'll have to talk. But as far as I know that you also do work with post-traumatic growth, and I do as well. And you were talking about testimony therapy, and that. So that's a meaning making where people are creating a new reality or creating something, a new trajectory for their life. And I just wonder how that intersects for Bosnians with genocide denial. In other words, does the genocide denial on behalf of the Serbs, does that affect Bosnian Muslims or Bosniaks? Does that affect them in their attempts to make meaning out of what happened? In other words, do they start buying into some of the denialism?
I don't think they're buying into, but they remember my first statement was a person who was traumatized that was like frozen in the past and has to be unfrozen. Rarely the people alone can unfrozen themselves and be in reality. Rarely. They usually need some help. And then when you hear genocide denial, they put them back in that frozen reality and they scare them more. And that's why I was presenting this. They scare them. And they are, that I was thinking, and that's my plan, if we can talk definitely. I have idea how to do PTG, post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is something that happens more often than PTSD after trauma. People after trauma, mostly like 60% develop, they are better. They learn from it. But only 20% people develop PTSD. That's epidemiology. But what happened is over there, I want to study how PTG developed back in Bosnia on the same survivors like who are with me in the camp, and how I developed here because the US gave me opportunity. And they can deny here, I don't care. But over there, they're your co-worker, they are your neighbor. So that's the difference. Yes.
Yes, we got a question, an online question. The pictures you shared look so similar to concentration camps during World War II. Thank you for sharing your story today. What is your biggest fear going forward with the challenges today of history continuing to repeat itself with these unspeakable atrocities? Is there hope that humanity will finally say enough is enough?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. I always have hope. Always. And then I think finding the hope is the key for survivors, and finding hope. And who was president after World War II? Is it Roosevelt, I think? Truman. No, before him. Roosevelt. Roosevelt said, when he got in front of American people, he said, there is only one thing between you and your success, American people. And that's if you hope in it, if you don't have hope in it. So if you have hope, you can do it. Humanity, I think a part that I always like, that's at least what I'm trying to do about humanity, is learning, is teaching, it's reading, it's learning about this. And then we'll open eyes to many people not to do same what our neighbors did. And at least, and I always have a hope that I will find somebody in my audience, they will be like me, because I said earlier in presentation, we have an interesting discussion that under no circumstances the people that I know and myself would torture other person under no circumstances. There is no politician or president who can order me to torture another person, period. Because there is a decision we make, you know, I would rather die easily than torture another person. And that's my hope, that when we teach this humanity, that we can transfer this message to other people. It is possible to say no. Yeah. Okay.
In your practice working with individuals who've experienced trauma, what are your thoughts on EMDR and how that might help people who've survived go forward and not repeat, both as perps and as survivors?
Yeah, to tell people a little bit, EMDR is a form of treatment for PTSD. It's called eye movement reprocessing therapy. And basically, when a person is sharing the story, what happened to them, at the same time, somebody is either moving a finger or light in front of the eyes. The point, the purpose is that trying to connect analytical and emotional brain, because there are two sides of the brain, analytical and emotional, to connect them, to connect that emotionally what happened to real story what happened, to connect them faster. Because I did it. I didn't need any treatment. I did by myself. I was thinking, okay, what do I do next? I was always thinking, what do I do next? I found the meaning. But for some people who cannot, EMDR is excellent treatment. They help them to faster during the session with the moving eyes, with the light, connecting analytical brain to emotional brain. It's very, in my experience, what I learned, I'm not the expert on it, I almost did, is that people who have single trauma are responding very well to EMDR. People who have like repeated trauma, you know, I don't think it will work for me because I have those many.
I was curious to know if you had noticed any patterns to the people who go down the PTSD route versus the post-traumatic growth route. Are there any kind of similarities that you see in the people?
Yeah, definitely. They studied that. There's many books on that there. But basically, what happened is people who had trauma in early childhood and then they have later, they will probably have PTSD. People with family history. Do you know about have you guys read about genetics? Transgenerational trauma. You can get some PTSD symptom from your grandparents. It's scary. It's genetics. It's scary, you know, sometimes. And then people who develop PTSD, mostly like, well, I am here. I was given an opportunity. If I was there, who knows what happened to me? I wouldn't have a chance to do something like what I did here. I was given an opportunity. So that's also in your environment, your social support, your family, your friends. They gave you meaning and hope. I think that's a big. And it's when questioned about hope, again, something personal. I want you to think about 1994, August 8th, I was here in Chicago, didn't speak a word of English language, zero. Now I'm teaching at a couple of universities. So it's doable. It's 27 years later. How come? Meaning, there's a meaning in life. There's motivation like anything else. There is a motivation. We can do it, things. We can do it. If we don't try, we are not going to do it. We have to try.
If I may, unless there's another question in the room, then maybe I can ask a question. So why are international pressures on Serbia so ineffective, right? I mean, we have the ability to dangle quite a number of things in front of Serbia that might force some reckoning with the past, and yet all of these swords seem to be pretty blunt. Be that admission to the European Union, be that trade embargoes, be that political pressure. All of this doesn't seem to be working, but rather drive Serbia into the arms of Russia even more.
Yeah, so I'm not a politician, but what I can tell you for sure is this, because they are supported by Putin. That's it. they are supported. If they don't have support by Putin, they will be insignificant whatsoever on West Balkan. Insignificant without Russian support. And why do they have the support? That's some geostrategic, there's some historical. I doubt there is a religion. They have same religions. I doubt that that is a reason. I doubt that. But geopolitical, and then there's support. Supporting them, and they tell them they can do it. And that's what they are doing. Without Putin support, they are, believe me, insignificant. Politics, I don't.
Do you think that without international pressure, they would have done anything?
Who?
That the Serbians, there would have been any kind of criminal trials for the perpetrators of the genocide
No.
without the international pressure?
No, nothing would happen. We have like big role of. I'm not saying Bill Clinton. I'm not. His administration helped, and then what's another guy name? He was. Do you know, Jay, that the guy who established international court? He wrote the book about us. And do you know his name? He was the Secretary of Foreign Affairs something. I met him. I forgot his name. I just blocked his name. It's a long day. Okay, so the establishment of the international court was the first step in reconciliation. And reconciliation is still started. Without this, war would never happen. When they finished with us, they started genocide in Kosovo, part of Serbia. And then NATO learned a lesson. And General Wesley Clark and other people in NATO, they decided to bomb them. And they did. For short period, I'm saying short, they said long, a couple months, they bombed them and they stopped the war immediately. That's it. That's who they are. Like, I think a couple months, I don't know. I don't want to make statements. Couple months bombing and they stopped the war. It happened in 1999, and I remember exactly where I was and what was I thinking at the time. Huh? Richard Holbrooke did on Dayton, but another guy was the person who established ICT. Why? He wrote the book on Bosnia. I talked to him actually together about my book and his book somewhere. So just block his name. Anyway, so that was.
So me and thousands of other kids across the world that are, the children of the survivors of this war. I've spoken to many. I have very many Bosnian friends where I've realized that we have a very similar outlook on the war as our parents, where it's very tragic and it's very scary. But I also noticed that we have a very optimistic outlook where we're looking to heal. Like, I have a lot of Serbian friends, whereas my parents would rather not associate with any Serbs. Us as young people, we're just not seeing the separation between Bosnian Serbs anymore. We're, more, I guess, Yugoslavs in a sense. But basically, my question is, like, do you have some kind of wish or hope for the next generation, like me, of how we should, I guess, carry this burden of remembering the war?
Just remembering not to forget, and having more Serbian friends will be the most helpful for you. Having more Croatian friends will be most helpful for a younger Bosnian generation. How come? Because you tell them the story. They also suffer. They did. I'm not denying that. They also suffer. So two of you share the story, learn from each other, and then you can build a new society here and back home. That's the future of humanity, to be a friend and not to think, again, very simplistic. I know it's like color of the skin or religious or your nationality. That's the key. Many more Serbian friends you have, you're a better person in the relationship with this, our society. And that should be your goal, actually. Teach them what happened. And I do all the time. I tell them what happened. I'm very comfortable telling people from back home, Serbia and Croatia. Right, right. And I tell them if they ask me. If they don't ask me, do I tell them? Sometimes maybe, but rarely. Yeah, sometimes, right. But yeah, they didn't know. Some of them tell me, "Oh my God, really? That happened?" I say, "Yeah, that happened." Okay, I think.
All right. Thank you very much.